Welcome to the DarrenDaily Aftershow. The topic of today's show is timely and critical. So we're answering the question somebody posted up on Facebook recently that said, Darren, I'm behind my goals, I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I'm nervous that I will fall short of my goals for the year. What can I do? Hey, look, no matter where you are with your goals right now, you can still win. You can make up the distance and stand victorious on December 31st. But now is the time to act. Now is the time to put in that final kick. I will share a strategy that can help you produce 3 times more the final 12 weeks of this year than most do all year long. In the game of life, like many other games that we play, victory always comes down to the final stretch, the final seconds, the final shots, that final effort. Did you know that more points are scored in the NFL during the final 2 minutes of each half than the entire rest of the game? In the NBA as well, more points are scored per 3-minute period. The last 3 minutes of the game followed only by the last 3 minutes of the first half. In Major League Baseball, victory is often decided on who can finish the 9th inning strongest. The first 8 innings are just a setup. And 20 to 40% of all annual retail and e-commerce sales are done the last 45 days of the year. So all games on the court, the field, or in life are decided in the final push. Well, right now, ladies and gentlemen, these are the final 12 weeks. Just like you saw with Billy Mills in the 1964 10,000-meter Olympic run, it all came down to the final 100 meters. Now is the time when it counts. The previous part of the year was just a setup for finishing strong. Now is the time to kick. So let's create a 12-week sprint, something that we can do together. There's a process that I picked up from some of the most prolific high achievers and business leaders that I know. You know, those people who just seem to defy the natural laws of how the universe works? Steve Jobs was accused of having a quote-unquote distortion field, a reality distortion field, where by other people's perspective, the results that he expected within a limited amount of time was quote-unquote distorted, they'd say. But it seemed that somehow he was able to bend time and pull off what others said was impossible time and time again. His bending of time is what I call success compression. Compressing intense energy, effort, and focus into compressed periods of time. This is what creates pressure and the propulsion that can produce quantum leaps in outcomes and results. In fact, it is the only way to really get any massive achievement off the ground is through this type of compression. Look at it like trying to get a 4.4 million pound rocket ship off the ground. The hardest part of the entire 500,000 mile journey to the moon and back is getting it the first 4 feet off the ground. Get this, of the 930,000 gallons of fuel used to get the Apollo space shuttle to and from the moon, over 500,000 gallons of that fuel, more than half, was used to just get it off the ground. That means that the first 2 of the 478,000 miles in total, it took half of all the energy to go the first 0.004% of the way. Now, the great thing about this success compression is, 1, not only do you get the rocket ship off the ground and into orbit, which you wouldn't have if you didn't compress that intense energy, effort, and focus into that launch period, but 2, once it breaks through the atmosphere, you can back off the throttle. In fact, you can even drop your launch rockets entirely and now propel your ship through outer space at a speed of over 24,000 miles an hour on a fraction of the energy and power. That is why many of the really high achievers that you admire never seem to be working that hard. Whatever they are working on, they have already done the hard launch and are now traveling at 24,000 miles an hour on cruise control. Now, here's the key point about success compression. Most people don't ever apply that concentrated focus, that pressure, and that power to anything long enough to get it up off the ground and into orbit. Then, if they do, they soon land their rocket and start working on something else, only to realize later that to get back to where they had left off, they have to retake all the launch all over again, having to expend that incredible energy just to get back in flight. Here's what it's like. Imagine you and I had a race, and we're going to race airplanes from Los Angeles to JFK Airport in New York City. Now, you have a 747. that travels at 500 miles an hour, and I have only a propeller plane that travels at 250 miles an hour. Who's going to win that race? Wait, before you answer, here's the other condition. Yours can go 500 miles an hour in the air, but you have to land and take off in every state between LA and JFK. That's 10 states. Now, who's going to win? Right. Even though you can travel at 2 times my speed, when you're airborne, I will still beat you by many hours, and you would expend 50 times the amount of fuel and energy only to lose and arrive much later. You see, by compressing my focus, time, and energy into one flight and sustaining that flight, even if it's slower, I can get across the country at least 10 times faster with 10% of the effort. That is what is called success compression. Meanwhile, most people do the other. They expend 50 times more energy and take considerably longer only to still lose on December 31st. It doesn't have to be that way if they just used success compression. That is what we're going to do. We're going to create a 12-week sprint using success compression. The most important aspect to the success compression process is having a structure. So we're going to use the 12-module course of Insane Productivity as our baseline structure. They're 12 modules delivered once a week over 12 weeks that will act as your focus framework. It will act like your keystone habit anchor, the one thing that you focus on that grounds you and makes you're able to stay focused on your other disciplines. You remember kind of like the way the mile a day was like in the Raven Run. It was one thing, no matter what happened, that you did religiously. And then all of a sudden it cascaded other disciplines throughout your life. And then B, the actual training of how to do the success compression is inside the Insane Productivity curriculum. So it acts as the perfect framework. Not only do you have an underlying baseline framework, you actually have the training of how to apply it. Success compression works in cycles. 90-day cycles, monthly cycles, weekly cycles, daily cycles, and then several hour time block cycles. There are different methods for applying that concentrated focus, that concentrated time and energy within those different compressed cycles. I'll give you just one example here. When I first decided to build a social media platform, I was behind the curve and I knew nothing about it. So I decided to run a 90-day success compression cycle on it. I took the 90-day cycle and I broke it out into 30-day cycles. So 1 month cycles, 3 times within the 90 days. The first 30 days, I gave it a massive compressed time, energy, and effort, maybe 60% of my total work time. And remember, I was, after all, still running an entire media and publishing company at the time. So nothing got 5% of my time. So 60% was a massive amount of compressed focus. So for the first 30 days, I learned everything I possibly could about social media. And I personally engaged in the process of every aspect of building and promoting my different social channels. Then the second 30-day cycle, I switched the focus to iterating on my learnings and compressing my focus only on those few things that I discovered the first 30 days that were actually the biggest difference maker. And then I eliminated a bunch of things that I discovered were just a waste of time. Then the last 30-day cycle switched my focus more narrowly still, and I focused on finding and training someone to do what I now knew had to be done to drive a successful social media community. So at the end of 90 days, my accounts had more than 500,000 followers, and I could pull back almost entirely. It was now in orbit, traveling at 24,000 miles an hour, but now I had somebody else at the controls. So while the content we publish on our social channels is all my content, I don't do any of the packaging or publishing. I might spend maybe 5 to 15 minutes a week inspecting what I expect, but that's it. It's now in orbit. It's now traveling at light speed with somebody else at the controls. But that wouldn't have been possible if I didn't first launch it with success compression. In fact, if you join this 12-week sprint, I will include the special social media training program where I outline exactly what I did during those first 90 days and how you can replicate the same results. You can also use these compressed cycles to massively scale up your sales results, your recruiting results, your culture building results, your client service results, whatever it is you need to focus on to really get launched this last part of the year. You can use this framework to execute on it. You will know how to execute all of that inside the Insane Productivity curriculum. You'll learn how to put yourself into what we call beast mode when you need to. Others have called it flow, but this is a whole other level of intense productive output in bursts of short compressed periods of time. This is identifying your peak periods of productivity and learning to get yourself into that peak performance mode. You'll be shocked how much you can output in a short period of time when you know how to get yourself into beast mode. You do have superhuman capabilities. You've seen yourself in a quote unquote flow state before. If you learn how to access that mode several times a day and produce what others will call insane results, I will tell you, it's exhilarating. It's much more fun to work that way than the way you're working now. I can promise you that. It's all about how you set yourself up and which type of activities you focus on in which times of the day and which times of the week and at which periods within the month and which times throughout the quarter based on their effective rate. Even doing the right activity at the wrong time will feel like you are swimming upstream and will produce very little progress. You're putting in all this effort but getting very little progress. However, the right activity done at the right time will feel like you're being carried almost effortlessly with the river. And the result then and the progress gained is tremendous. Okay, the A-Team and I are going to start our 12-week sprint next week. We are going to crush our Q4, and we want to invite you to join us. We're going to be going through Insane Productivity module for module, week over week, to close the year out together. If you're already an Insane Productivity member, just start back at Module 1 starting next week. If you are not an Insane Productivity member, I'm going to give you a backdoor VIP entrance. Remember, Insane Productivity is not offered publicly for sale without personal invitation. So this will be my personal invitation if you want to join us on this 12-week sprint. It will include an additional $2,000 worth of other training programs that I know that you'll need along the way in this 12-week sprint. And that includes the complete audio training program on the habits of high performers, the live video training uncovering the belief system of success, and the special social media bonus that I just mentioned. It will teach you how to scale to reach more than 1 million people a day on social media, spending less than 15 minutes a week on the process. The other thing that I will add in for those that are joining us on this 12-week sprint is a $1,000 scholarship applied towards the Ludicrous Leadership Upgrade. Now, this is 6 additional modules of leadership training on how to drive a high-performance team to produce these insane results. I'm doing that because I know that you'll need that to carry your propulsion through January into 2020, to take the momentum that you will gain these last 12 weeks and carry you through the first part of the year, and that'll keep you in orbit and it'll make the whole domino effect of the year that much more incredible. If you're not already a member, just click the enroll link or button below. So, whether your goals have to do with making more money, blowing out your sales quota for the year, becoming debt-free before the end of the year, losing weight once and for all, gaining the muscle or getting that fitness back, getting yourself back in those skinny jeans, whatever, this 12-week sprint will show you how to make up for lost time and achieve any goal that you want faster and easier than you ever thought possible. All right, you ready to kick? Now is the time. It's the final 100 meters. Now is the time to sprint.
Look at Mills! Look at Mills! Look at Mills! Coming on! Mills is coming on! Oh, no! I think Mills! What a tremendous surprise!